guys, so this is going to be a very long update, and it's probably going to be one of the most personal videos I've ever shared on my channel. This is particularly for people who have been following me here on YouTube for a long time, and maybe you actually care about me as a person and want to know what I've been doing in my absence from YouTube. I'm gonna talk about how bad 2022 was for me, because it was really bad. I'm also going to be sharing my faith, which I have mentioned that I'm Christian on here many times, but I haven't like completely gotten into it and shared Bible verses and things like that. So I'm just giving everybody a heads up that that is what follows. And I am not in the mental place to deal with any negativity right now. Like, I'm just being completely honest. I feel like, and I really hope that I'm on the tail end of everything that I just went through, but I'm not out of the woods yet. I feel it's time for me to break the silence and reach out on here and hopefully encourage some of you who also had a terrible year last year, or maybe you've just been in a season of darkness and just awful things coming into your life. I would like to encourage you because same. So the beginning of 2022, I started out the year pretty strong. I filled my plate with more than I could probably handle, and I was very ambitious. Every year, towards the end of the year, around October-ish, is when I usually start thinking about what my goals are for the new year. Not to say that I ever stick to a New Year's resolution, but I feel like being in that space of really reflecting over the prior year, intentionally focusing on what I want my next year to look like, it just kind of steers the ship a little bit. So maybe I don't nail every single thing that I set out to do, but I am kind of moving on that trajectory. But 2022 was supposed to be my year. I mean, I think that that was the hardest I've ever went as far as being sure that this is what's gonna go down. I don't care what happens, throw whatever you got at me, throw hell in the kitchen sink, and I will handle all of that because I am kind of a control freak. I like to know that my life is going the way that I want it to go. And that's just who I am as a person. So then at the beginning of summer, my stepdad, his name is Tony, he has been with my mom since 2014.
The day that we met was at the Cedar River Seafood Restaurant in Middleburg. She basically didn't know how to get there, so I was sitting there in the parking lot talking with her on the phone. Finally, she pulls in right beside me. She's still yapping on the phone. Well, I got out of the truck, walk around, she's yapping away, and she said, well, when do I get to see you? And I said, look out the damn window. That's where it started.
And has very much become a part of our family. Like, we eased into the, you're our stepdad thing, which as an adult, it can get tricky. It can get a little awkward and weird, but he for sure 100% is our stepdad and played a huge role in the lives of all of my family. Just an amazing, incredible human being. So at the beginning of summer, he started experiencing a lot of strange symptoms and everything. He's got a history of bladder cancer. Those symptoms just like progressively got worse to where it seemed like there was just an onslaught of horrible health issues that he was having to deal with. Multiple things going on simultaneously. He's in his 70s. As tough as he is, the type of guy that plans everything, a plan for everything, organized lists, labels, order to his life. Like that's the main word that I think of when I think of Tony is order and structure. Things like that. He'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, sit out on his porch, have his coffee, black coffee, while doing crossword puzzles, cooked dinner in the morning so that he didn't have to do it in the evening, and he'd spend his day in the yard working on things, and sharp, he's just a really sharp guy. To watch all of these problems that he had to endure that just slowly chipped away at him and his health and his resolve until at the end of August, we figured out, like, after, several stays in the hospital and then just the rapid decline that he experienced, he was diagnosed with aggressive terminal cancer. My mom being disabled and Tony, in the condition that he was in with his health, my sister and I were taking off a lot of work. We were going back and forth to the hospital, advocating on his behalf, to all of the doctors, just trying to make sense of it. Because, like I said, there were so many different things going on at once that we had to talk to several different teams of doctors, like constantly. And if we were not at the hospital, we were on FaceTime with doctors, and it's just so much confusion during that time. But we watched one of the smartest men we know go from being very present, very engaged, very in control of his life, to taking his last breath. I've never seen, I've experienced death before, but I've never experienced anything quite like that. To watch it all play out, to be old enough to see and know all of the intricate details, because you're getting the firsthand information from the doctors yourself. You're there, you're watching it happen, like play by play, to see him go from perfectly fine to taking his last breath. It was absolutely one of the most traumatic things I have ever been through in my life. Straight up. Whenever I think about that, there's a few things that I think of. I think of last year was finally when I called Tony on Father's Day. And because Tony's not a sentimental guy, and he's kind of brash. You'd have to know him to really understand, but he's not sentimental at all. But I called him on Father's Day last year, and I told him, like, you are very much a dad to us. You are very much a part of our family, and we consider you a very important father figure in our lives. And I'm so thankful that I did that. And then on the 4th of July, Tony stood at the bar where he usually does at family gatherings at my house. He would position himself at the corner of the bar every time without fail. And then whoever walks by, like, gets to talk to and engage with Tony. And he's usually like sharing the latest sales on meat. He's kind of like a prepper in a sense, and he'd always encourage you, like, you got to stock up on this meat while it's on sale. But this time, I asked him how he was feeling. This is the 4th of July, and he said, KA, because that's what he calls me, is KA, I don't think that I have much time left here. And I dismissed it, and I maybe sometimes wish that I had engaged in that conversation a little bit more. Maybe he wanted to talk about it. I knew that I wasn't going to get through this video without crying. But it was uncomfortable because it's an uncomfortable thing to talk about. And at this point, he was experiencing some minor health things, but nothing that you thought would be the end of the world. And so I dismissed it and said, oh, come on, don't say stuff like that. You've got like another 10 years easily. And so I thought about it, and I forced him to swim in our swimming pool because, I'd been thinking about it, and I thought, we wanted to go to the beach, but that might have been a little bit too much on my mom since she relies on a walker to get around. She can't stand on her own. And so we'd have to carry her, and then all the sand, and they'd probably not be comfortable. Tony, according to him, he hadn't swam in 40 years, and I don't think that he was lying. He initially was like, absolutely not, like, no way. I was like, no, you're gonna do it. You're gonna swim in our pool on the 4th of July. You're gonna do it. And then he tried to come up with an excuse like, well, I don't have swimming trunks. I said, guess what? Kevin does. My husband does. You can wear his extra set of swimming trunks. Like, I wasn't having any excuses, and I forced him, but you could tell, like, he kind of wanted to do it, but wouldn't initiate. I got pictures of him and my mom in my swimming pool, and he was genuinely happy. And I'm so glad that I've got those good things to counter the bad things that tend to want to take over my mind. Like seeing him take his last breath, or when they wheeled him out the last time, 2:00 in the morning, hospice. He passed away at home, surrounded by me, my mom, and my sister. And when they wheeled him out for the last time after we said our last goodbye, my sister and I, we just collapsed on the sidewalk in front of his house, and we wailed. We just wailed. Okay, I gotta get it together. I can't cry this entire video. That was really, really hard. I spent my bereavement like throwing myself into house projects. Like, I decided like the day that I got home after he passed to paint my entire house. Like, that's how I grieved, because it's hard for me to sit in my feelings sometimes, you know, and I feel like I have to keep myself very busy so that I don't fall apart because other people really depend on me. I've got a family, I've got a job, like I can't sit here in my sadness for even a moment, and so I overwhelm myself. This is gonna end up being a very long video. Since I had so much on my plate after I returned to work and I was still not quite okay with everything that happened, my oldest son, who is from a previous relationship, his grandmother, she has been in the picture since my son was born, that my kids call grandma, so they get like, you know, bonus grandmas all over the place, and she is another bonus grandma. She stepped in to help me juggle all of the things that I was juggling at home, and suggested that 3 times a week she would come out and she would help with the kids, make sure that they're doing their work, their chores, homework, make sure that dinner is on time for when I get home. Like, she just recognized the need and she stepped in. She texted me at work one day and she suggested that I like rehome my dog. Of everything that happened in 2022, I think that the only thing that stands out in my mind is like a really good thing. I'm sure there's other things, but we got our dog Ruby last year and it's our first family dog. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it's so cute, it's so cute, it's so cute, it's so cute. That looks like a golden doodle. Yeah.
No way. Calm down. This is her.
Yeah, please don't overwhelm her.
This is Ruby.
Oh my god.
Hopefully we're not like Megan.
Aw,
That's all it is.
I knew you guys were gonna get a dog. I knew it.
So I was at Josh's house and this happened.
Okay, y'all just so happened to be on errands for 6 hours. What are you guys doing? He's so sweet.
Hey, Ruby.
Hi.
Okay, let's get her inside.
Okay.
Yeah. What breed is she?
She's a golden doodle. She's a sweetheart. I'm surprised she's not here right now. That's kind of weird because she's like my shadow. She texted me and suggested that we get rid of Ruby, that we give her to a home that can give her the energy and attention that she needs because, you know, we had just watched our stepdad, you know, just deteriorate before our eyes. It was a lot. I was juggling a lot. I understood where she was coming from, but at the same time, that was very crazy to me, and she really stepped over a clear boundary, you know? But I don't fault people for who they are, and I know who she is, and I know she can get a little bit extreme in her ideas and stuff. She did offer to take Ruby to the groomer because while I was in and out of the hospital, my husband was at home, you know, with the kids and the dog, and they were in and out of the pool. Ruby loves to swim, like she loves the pool, but blowing her puppy coat, her adult coat's coming in. She's a golden doodle, long, crazy hair, chlorine, like it just doesn't mix. And so she got some mats and I just couldn't get, like I couldn't break free to take her. She offered to take Ruby to the vet. Well, she ended up taking, or not the vet, but to the groomer. She took her to the vet and the groomer. At the groomer that Friday, she concocted this whole story about how when she left the groomers after shaving Ruby down because, you know, they couldn't save her coat, Ruby broke free from the chain and ran away. The first thing that I did was I left work and immediately went out to the location where my dog was last seen, and I looked for 5 hours. The next morning, I got out there with my husband, and it's in a sketch part of town. Like, seriously, while we were looking, we heard gunshots, and it ended up being on the news that somebody was shot like 2 blocks away from where we were at. But we got there at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and we were out looking for our dog for 13 hours straight. We launched a massive social media campaign, distributed flyers everywhere. We even started to pull footage from cameras to see what direction she might have ran and like where we could look, because everybody in that area knew who our dog was by the time we were done. Like, we just did not stop. And there was not one single sighting of our shaved golden doodle running down the road with a harness and a leash trailing behind her. So I started to notice some inconsistencies in the story and everything. The groomer also felt that something was off because grandma was making some wild claims that had no, basis in reality. Like looking at our dog and what she was saying, it just didn't match up. So she reached out to me, like the owner of the company reached out to me and was like, hey, like, have you considered, like, she didn't want to cross the line or anything to suggest that a family friend or a family member had done something, but even she thought that it was suspicious. And so she had connections. We got some detectives on the case and we got a confession. And within a week, my dog was back. But it was traumatizing. I cried every single day. It was just too much. So we got Ruby back end of October. Here we are, November 9th. My company had to do some budget cuts. My position was eliminated and I lost my job. I can't make this up, it's crazy. I don't think that I processed anything that I went through last year. I'd worked there for 5 years, become very close to the people that I worked with. They were like family. I spent most of my time there.
Uh-oh.
What did you do? Take it off my desk. What is it?
Where did it go? Oh.
What did you do? What is it? Get it out. Get it out. It's crawling on my stuff. Get it out now.
Where did it go?
I don't know.
No, you're busted.
What are you doing?
What is in my office?
Nothing.
You're recording me right now.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. Get it out of here. Where is it? You're recording.
Nothing! Just sit down.
No, I'm not sitting down. Get it out of here. Get it out. I'm not falling for this shit anymore. Get it off my... It's still on my... Get it out of here. Ew. Christy, get it off my desk. I'm serious. Get it out now.
Look at this. What? Christy, get it out of here. Get it out now.
I hate you. Get it off my desk. Right now. It was just really hard to process. So I left work early that day, quietly, tried to sneak out, but they ran out and gave me hugs. Like nobody was happy about me having to get let go. And on my way home, like before I rounded the corner to get to my house, I catch my teenage daughter walking down the street with a backpack. And there's a whole backstory with that too, but she had been having a rough year last year too. Like everybody in the family was going through emotional hell in 2022. We all had our own battles that we were fighting. She's walking down the street with a backpack. She was grounded. She wasn't supposed to be leaving the house. And here she is full on trying to run away. So I locked that down, got her back at the house. Like, I can't even process anything that's going on at this point. And then the following week, she did run away. I was playing full-on detective nonstop to find my daughter until, like, and we had the police involved, but they just were, they look at things like that like, oh, typical runaway. My daughter was in danger. My family and I, we surrounded the house where we figured out she was at, and we got her back. Then it was just like rebuilding everything that had fell apart last year. All the relationships that were kind of damaged last year, the emotional trauma that we had all endured. Initially, I tried to do it again, throw myself into every project imaginable, taking on my daughter's situation, getting her set up in a new school and a new environment, like giving her her own reset. Aside from that, I'm full on getting my husband to install wall sconces, and we're painting bathroom vanities and pulling caulk from the shower and the tub, and days-long projects, like just one after another, going through every single closet, organizing, purging. It's just crazy. But I just basically got to a point where I shut down. I realized that I had overextended myself in every single area of my life, and I just crashed. I just crashed. It has taken everything in me not to go lay in that bed and just not get up. I mean, the darkest time of my life, I believe that was last year. Hands down. More than anything I had endured with my teeth, because, you know, I was young back then. I was 26 when I lost my teeth. I'm a whole 39 years old now. So, like, I'm fully aware of just how bad things are, and I prefer not to be, you know? Sometimes you prefer the ignorance and innocence of your youth. One thing that I did realize, when I started to really stop feeling sorry for myself, stop wondering, like, why is all of this happening to me? What have I done? Because, like, that's typically where I go to. I go to blaming myself. When things go wrong, I immediately look at myself and I'm like, what have I done? Where did I, like, along the line just mess up and attract all of this bad stuff into my life? I started to do that, and then I realized, like, through reflecting and spinning it over in my head, that I don't make great plans for myself. I just don't. And I've proven that over and over and over again, that when I try to do my own thing and direct my own path, it almost always leads me straight towards a cliff. And that is the honest truth. I have to put all of my faith in Jesus. There's no way around it. And you'd think that I would learn that by now. Like, I sure hope that I've learned that by now, to walk in the Spirit, to trust that his ways are higher than our ways, and that there is no way that we've got everything mapped out better than he does. There's just no way. As a matter of fact, the whole reason, like, I'm convinced that I even ended up with my dentures and, winning my implants in a contest and having a YouTube platform and a following of people that, kind of look to me for advice and all of that. Like, I'm 1000% sure that I would not have any of that stuff had it not been a part of God's plan, because my plan, I never could have pulled something like that off. Like, not in a million years. That was all his doing for his glory, to bring glory to him. It's just so easy, with all the distractions in life, to fall back into this self-centered way of thinking, of inflating your own importance to the point that you matter more than the plan and the world around you and the people around you. We have, like, entered this era of almost toxic self-help where, we forget about the people around us and the needs that are around us that we should be filling. We should absolutely be stepping in to fill those. So I was, like, making all of these plans about, everything that I'm going to have going for myself in my own life. I was neglecting to follow what God has led me to do. And I know full well that I've done that. And this is me confessing that. Okay, so I'm going to have to wrap this video up, because apparently, like, deleting hours worth of footage on my phone is not enough to free up storage so that I could actually record something. I have to figure that out, or this is not going to work. Basically, what I'm getting at is that maybe a week before I was let go, I shut the door to my office. I prayed really hard. I cried, and I just asked God, please bring balance to my life, because my family needs me now more than ever. Please give me an opportunity. I can't possibly be in all of these places at one time. And I feel like the priority is them. It's my kids. That is where I need to be. That is where my time is the most valuable, in my opinion, because you could have all the money in the world, but if you're raising kids that just have all of these emotional needs that are not being met, and especially with a year like we had last year, then what's the point of that? Like, what is the point of that? And I'm not even saying that I could afford to lose my job. I can't. I don't know what we're going to do, but I have to trust that that was, in some weird way, an answered prayer. And as bad as I felt about everything that I had endured last year, I have to trust God. I have to put my own wisdom and interpretation of the things that happen in my life aside. I have to let that go. My need to know everything, have the answers to everything, and control everything, I've got to let that go and trust that this is where he's leading me for some reason. I do want to share a couple of Bible verses, because I don't want to make this all about me and a pity party of what I've gone through, because I know that it was rough for a lot of people last year. Here's a couple pretty popular verses that have really sustained me. I keep them up on my whiteboard over there, and just as reminders. Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. I know the plans I have for you. I know. This might not make sense to you right now, but I know what's going on, and you need to let those thoughts and those worries and those anxieties go. Let it go. Let things happen the way that they're supposed to happen. Stop trying to fight everything. Stop trying to control everything. I'm the one that's in control of all of this. You just need to let it go. That's what I hear when I read that verse. The next thing is Romans 12:12. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Patient in affliction. Right there. Isn't it Paul that says that he delights in his weakness? He delights in it. How do we get to a point where we can humble ourselves enough to delight in these things that we go through, these seasons that we find ourselves in? Because that is, I believe, the wisdom that is spoken to us through these verses. We are children. We are like children. It's like my kids sometimes they come up, they always have like these ideas, like this is my plan. And they've thought it through. You know how it is. They sit in there, they rehearse it, like they figure it out. They know like what words to say to me to manipulate the situation so that the odds of me saying yes to their crazy plans will be higher. Like, and in their head, in their child like mine, they really figured it out. And sometimes you just got to cave for the effort. But like, you know, sometimes they've just got some wild ideas that are not good for them. And it might make so much sense to them. And you could tell them all of your logic and your reason behind why you just can't say yes to that, why you just have to say no. And they're not going to get it. And as a parent, you learn to pick your battles and you learn to say, you know what? I don't have to explain myself to you because you are a child and I know better than you do in this situation. That is God to us all the time. We are children. We don't know what he's doing. We don't know what he's got in the works for us. And as scary as life can be at times, as uncertain as it can be, faith is trusting him through all of that.
Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I prove him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more.
When things are good, when things are bad, when you've got an abundance, when you feel that you are lacking, it's through all of that. It needs to be stable and consistent. That is my video update here, and I hope that it helped somebody that might have needed to hear these words of encouragement, because not everybody has somebody to talk to, and not everybody feels comfortable talking to people about, you know, the different trials that they go through. And I could have got up here just as easy and not gave specifics of what I'd gone through last year, and I would have just, you know, kind of glossed over everything and left people to believe that, you know, oh, it really wasn't as bad, I'm sure, as she's making it out to be. And there's even still the lesser things that I didn't mention, like my husband's cat getting ran over and us having to identify the body and watching him cry like worse than I've ever seen, or me wrecking my Challenger on Easter morning on the way to church, or my whole closet system collapsing, or him wrecking his $1,200 drone into the side of a building when he needs it for his photography business. I mean, last year was crazy. So don't think for 1 minute that I'm just like blowing this whole thing out of proportion. It was insane, and you're not alone. You might have had a year just as bad or way worse than that, but you're not alone. All of us are going through some things, and God is with all of us. God is with his children. He has not forgotten us. Much love to you guys. Hopefully the next video that you see will be a denture video. So y'all take care.